Tuesday, January 24. Offerings and Worship. The Bible does not give us an order of service for worship, but it appears that at least 4 things are present in worship services. In the New Testament, this list includes study or preaching, prayer, music, and tithes and offerings. 3 times each year, the men and families of Israel were all to appear before the Lord in Jerusalem, and, as it says in Deuteronomy 16:16, they shall not appear before the Lord empty-handed. In other words, part of the worship experience was the returning of tithe and giving offerings. It was at Passover, Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles that God's children brought their tithes and offerings. It's hard to imagine someone coming to those feasts empty-handed. In other words, for ancient Israel, the giving of their tithes and offerings was a central part of their worship experience. Worship, true worship, isn't just expressed in words and songs and prayer, our thankfulness and gratitude to God, but also expressing that thankfulness and gratitude to God by the bringing of our offerings to the house of the Lord. They brought it to the temple. We bring it to the church on Sabbath, at least as one way to return our tithe and offerings, an act of worship. Read 1 Chronicles chapter 16 and verse 29, and Psalms 96 verses 8 and 9, and Psalm 116 verses 16 and 2:18. How do we apply the principles expressed here to our own worship experience? 1 Chronicles 16:29, give to the Lord the glory due his name. Bring an offering and come before him. O worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. And Psalm 96, beginning at verse 8, give to the Lord the glory due his name. Bring an offering and come into his courts. O worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Tremble before him, all the earth. And Psalm 116, beginning at verse 16. O Lord, truly I am your servant. I am your servant, the son of your maidservant. You have loosed my bonds. I will offer to you the sacrifice of thanksgiving, and will call upon the name of the Lord. I will pay my vows to the Lord, now in the presence of all his people. As God's children, who are tasked with the responsibility of managing his business on the earth, it is a privilege, an opportunity, and a responsibility to bring our offerings. If the Lord has given us children to raise for him, we should share with them the joy of bringing tithes and offerings to Sabbath school and church service. In some places, people return their tithe online or by other means. However we do it, the returning of tithes and offerings is a part of our worship experience with God. So to finish the day, what has been your own experience with the role of returning tithe and offerings as part of worship? How does the practice impact your relationship with God? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful. And here is a disclaimer. Contents of these lessons are not intended to be financial advice, but is general commentary based on biblical principles. The reader is encouraged to seek competent professional advice which will suit their particular personal situation.